Hey lore lovers, my name's Eric with the Lorebrarians YouTube channel, and in today's video, we'll be discussing a fan favorite in the MTG community. A character with great import and clout, whose genius is matched only by his vanity and self-interest. A dragon nearly as old as the elders of Dominaria, with significant abilities in his own right, and one whom I've received many requests to cover in his own video. We're taking a deep dive into the story of Niv-Mizzet, founder and Parun of the Izzet League on the plane of Ravnica and current living Guildpact. His story spans millennia and culminates in the climactic battle for Ravnica and the greater multiverse against the Elder Dragon Planeswalker Nicol Bolas in the War of the Spark. But before we begin, if you're a fan of lore and storytelling, or if Magic the Gathering is dear to you, consider subscribing to the channel where lore videos are uploaded frequently. The support is much appreciated. Alright, time to step into the bustling marketplaces and crowded streets of Ravnica to discover the tale of Niv-Mizzet. Let's dive in. When one thinks of a leader, images come to mind of a strong, commanding presence, resolute in the face of adversity. A great mediator, one who listens to their followers and navigates them through tortuous obstacles, setting down a path and staying the course. A calm, level head that prioritizes the needs of the many over their own and shares the credit when achievements are reached. These traits contrast greatly with those of perhaps the oldest and grandest leader on the plane of Ravnica, the Dragon Parun and Guildmaster of the Izzet League, Niv-Mizzet. Niv-Mizzet is a large and ancient dragon, the last of his kind, with a body several times a human's size, covered in brilliant red-brown scales. His blue fringed frills that surround his head make Niv easily discernible from other dragons of the plane. Although he has made inferior clones of himself over years of experimentation that resemble him in appearance. This can be seen in the art of the card Hypersonic Dragon. A temperamental dragon with a genius-level intellect, Niv-Mizzet is obsessed with knowledge and discovery, and over his nearly 17,000 years of existence, he achieved what many consider omniscience. Although his mental capacity is without equal on the plane, he is far from a cold, calculating machine, and is in fact often prone to volatile outbursts of frustration and anger. These character traits, along with his innate fire-breathing and significant mind magic abilities, give Niv a strong foundation in both blue and red mana, highlighted in the mana costs of his cards. Niv's alignment towards blue and red is further showcased in the guild functioning under his leadership, the Izzet League. The Izzet League are magical engineers, visionaries, and environmental scientists charged with the production and maintenance of Ravnica's civic works. They are responsible for the massive boilers that energize the city, the extensive network of causeways and roads through which Ravnica's lifeblood flows, and the aqueducts that water the plain. The Izzet, like their parent Niv, are obsessed with knowledge and experimentation. The dragon pushes his mages to the boundaries of the theoretical, at which point either thrilling discoveries or violent explosions ensue, oftentimes both. The Izzet flourish under the guidance of Niv, but the dragon frequently separates himself from his guild, seeking the seclusion of his own personal laboratory to conduct experiments. For the dragon, the only thing more glorious than the pursuit of knowledge is Niv's own being. He's as self-absorbed as he is brilliant. He's seen thousands of years pass and has outlived millions, further inflating his already astronomical ego. It's a comment on Niv-Mizzet's vanity that the name of his guild be Izzet, very nearly his own, and that the guild signet be a brilliant red dragon, a symbol that resembles himself more with each iteration, as mentioned in the art and flavor text of Izzet's signet. Furthermore, his personal chambers and laboratory is called Nivix, once again bolstering his self-image. It's apt that the magically infused, malleable, versatile, and nearly indestructible metal alloy Niv-Mizzet created be named Mizzium after its inventor. An interesting bit of self-centered trivia comes to us in the flavortext of the first printing of the dragon in the card Niv-Mizzet the Firemind. It's an equation that, if read correctly, by rotating the card 90 degrees, states Niv-Mizzet equals 1. Perhaps this means the dragon sees himself as number 1, or that there is only one being as superior as Niv-Mizzet. Everywhere one looks within the structures or sites of the Izzet League, Mizzet's arrogance and vanity is unabashedly displayed for all to see. Other than his immense intellect and physical and magical prowess, Niv-Mizzet has an innate ability to telepathically connect with and communicate with other minds. This ability to grant an extrasensory link to his knowledge has bestowed upon Niv-Mizzet the moniker of Firemind. Connection with the Firemind is not awarded to all in the Izzet League. Only discernible mages that have proven their skill, intellect, and creativity to the dragon are in tune with the Firemind, who allows his knowledge to flow into their minds, further expediting scientific breakthroughs. Individuals granted access to the Firemind are immersed in vibrant passion and creative brilliance, but it comes at a cost. Many minds aren't strong enough to burden even a fraction of Niv-Mizzet's arcane knowledge. They quickly devolve into a hallucinogenic and delusional state known as fire madness, in which they are racked with intractable self-obsession and conceit. Perhaps this is caused by a connection to the dragon's own vanity. Currently, Niv-Mizzet has also gained the power of the living Guildpact and has been reborn as a dragon avatar, paragon and defender of Ravnica. He's quite possibly the most powerful being on the plane. But to understand how he has gained such status, we must trace the story of Niv-Mizzet and travel almost 17,000 years into the past, to the first stirrings of his power. The year is negative 12,200 AR. The vast plain of Ravnica is no longer in its primordial infancy. Already, civilization has grown and advanced, but not for the betterment of all. Clans, tribes, and kingdoms carve out territory for themselves, clawing at each other's throats with armies bent on destruction. The plain is a desolate and brutal landscape, where war tears on without end. The violence is so severe, in fact, that if they continue on their current path, the ancient civilizations will all be destined for extinction, and the planet itself may crumble. This is the world that a young dragon, a hatchling really, that has just escaped the confines of its shell, finds itself in. A world where its short life is already threatened, and survival is most important. The dragon hatchling's name is Niv-Mizzet, and he's destined for greatness. Born in negative 12,208 AR, Niv-Mizzet is the last hatchling of the ancient race of Ravnican dragons. These dragons differ from those of today in their intellect, raw strength, and innate self-awareness. Niv-Mizzet, in fact, knew his name, who he was, and a great many other pieces of information at the moment of his birth. This ability has been seen before across the multiverse, on the plane of Dominaria with the Elder Dragons, another ancient race of dragons sired directly from the Dragon and born with capabilities similar to those of ancient Ravnica. This has led many to postulate as to whether Niv-Mizzet is also an Elder Dragon, and if he too is a direct offspring of the Dragon, the avatar of all dragonkind. The ancient dragons of Ravnica, like the Elders, were consumed by a long period of internal conflict and grab for power. Much akin to the Elder Dragon War, this aggression between dragons led to much devastation, and many of Niv-Mizzet's species were killed. Regardless of his title, Niv is thrust into a plane of bloodshed and desecration, where the din of battle is punctured only by the wails of the dying. A difficult situation for a young dragon to maneuver, but Mizzet has his strength, his fire, and most importantly his intelligence on which he can rely. In the centuries following his birth, Niv-Mizzet solidified his control over a range of land, located roughly where the present-day Utfara Reclamation Zone stands. He uses the landscape as a hunting grounds, and often retreats to his deep lair within mountain caverns to grow and to learn. Through cunning and mental prowess, Niv-Mizzet defeats all would-be threats posed by members of his own race, and becomes the last of the ancient dragons. This glorious feat fosters the dragon's growing ego and fuels his desire for more power, more knowledge, more recognition. Not satisfied with his title of Last Dragon, Niv-Mizzet works to position himself within the hierarchy of the kingdoms and clans that rule war-torn Ravnica. Once more, through guile and a show of his tremendous power, the dragon gains control of a clan, becoming its Parun, or leader. As the years approach negative 5,500 AR, the situation on Ravnica becomes dire. Thousands of years of war, violence, and environmental decimation have pushed the factitious clans to the point of collapse, of utter annihilation. Niv-Mizzet is aware of the circumstances and realizes action must be taken to preserve the plane and prevent the fall of civilization. He agrees to meet with other like-minded clan leaders and hear a proposal brought forth by a mysterious sphinx and master hieromancer, the planeswalker Azor. In negative 5517 AR, Azor, Niv-Mizzet, and 8 other Paruns call upon ancient primeval magic to bring forth a living, breathing document, signed into law and sealed with blood and magic, that serves as a basis for all Ravnican law, setting statutes and ordinances for how civilization will run, to prevent catastrophe from seizing the plane. The document and its magic is known as the Guildpact, and the 10 clans that agreed to its terms will go on to become the 10 guilds of the present-day Ravnica, their Paruns acting as guild leaders to guide them and foster growth. Niv-Mizzet finds himself master of a guild that, in his infinite vanity, he proceeds to name the Izzet League. The signing of the Guildpact leads to a relatively stable period in the history of Ravnica. No longer in a desperate fight for survival, no longer seeking out conflict and bloodshed, the clans begin working together. They slowly transform the early settlements and villages into a great metropolis bustling with purpose and activity, and the clans themselves slowly transform into the guilds that lead various aspects of Ravnican life. Those drawn to the Izzet League are the Ravnican mages, scientists, and theorists, like-minded to Niv-Mizzet. Driven to experiment, to push the boundary of natural law and create truly epic designs. It's no wonder, then, that the Izzet League is responsible for the civic works, using their genius to create novel technology that helps provide needed resources for the masses of the plane. Mizzet creates a structure to house his greatest scientists and provide them ample room to conduct their experiments. A great guild hall multi-storied and replete with busts, frescoes, and portraits of the glorious Parun, which he names Nivix. We see the grand architecture on display in the Art of Nivix, area of the Firemind, and its flavor text reads, Niv-Mizzet's genius and vanity reverberate throughout the mirrored halls of Nivix. The Izzet Guildhall is akin to a massive brain, a maze of corridors and rooms following circuitous paths like sulci and gyri, where information is tested, new knowledge is gained, and news of breakthroughs travels across the neural network of scientists and mages. Niv-Mizzet's private chambers and laboratory sit at the top of Nivix, where the Firemind spends years contemplating the great mysteries of the plane and conducting experiments to seek answers. With the advent of the guilds, an age of relative peace and prosperity sweeps over Ravnica, and Niv-Mizzet acts as steward of the Izzet League for the next several thousand years. As his guild's renown for experimentation grows, the ancient dragon steers its largest projects and greatest developments. Sometime during his tenure as Parun, Niv-Mizzet discovers an amazing breakthrough in technology by creating the magically imbued metal called Mizium. It's not quite clear when this occurred, but the protean and nearly indestructible metal has found uses ranging from stabilizations of elementals called weirds, to production of armor, to the creation of destructive weapons. The flavortext of Mizium Transreliquat succinctly states the metal's versatility. What is it? What do you want it to be? Interestingly, one of the few ways to destroy Mizium is by subjecting it to sufficient amounts of dragonfire. Perhaps a failsafe installed by Mizzet to prevent others from using his brainchild against him. Truly a great discovery, and another accolade for the dragon to add to his already extensive list. Through Niv-Mizzet's leadership, the Izzet League takes on a chaotic but tangible hierarchy. The grunts, test dummies, and lab rats at the bottom. Above them stand the scientists and clinical experimenters. Next come the theorists and visionaries that truly impress Niv. They are those granted the extrasensory link of the fire mind. In fact, the few members of the Izzet League that reach this status are often conferred a title, a suffix zix added to their name to signify their brilliance and close relation to the Parun. We see this in the character Crix from the Ravnica cycle of books, whose endeavors earn the name Crixizix, and also in the card Mizzix of the Iz Magnus. Their names hearken to the dragon's own, another display of Niv-Mizzet's conceit. As the centuries march on, the dragon performs several experiments in the science of morphology and cloning. From them, he creates a large contingent of dragons, all clones of himself that, despite not having his innate self-awareness, intellect, and power, still command great strength and cunning. Perhaps he creates them to remind others of his presence, for Niv-Mizzet becomes more and more reclusive as the years pass. He retreats to his eyrie or somewhere else entirely for decades at a time. In fact, none see him for nearly 2,500 years as the decamillennium of the signing of the Guildpact approaches. His whereabouts remain shrouded in mystery. Perhaps he spends this time scouring the plane for secrets buried at the edge of the known, or perhaps he attempts to peer into the blind eternities and travel between worlds like individuals he's heard of. He may have experimented in an attempt to become a planeswalker. Nevertheless, his absence has a profound effect on the events that transpire, both for the Izzet League and the plane at large. It affords an opportunity to one of Niv's underlings, an unparalleled Izzet scientist, to devise a plan to usurp the title of Parun. In 4447 AR, the years leading up to Ravnica's decamillennium, the Izzet Mage Lord, Zomaj Hauk, suffers from bouts of fire madness brought on by his link to the Firemind. Self-obsession and egomania consume him as his mind flares with brilliance. In this state, Hauk believes himself to be the supreme being of the plane, that Ravnica is his by right, and he begins a plan for world domination and the defeat of his biggest adversary, his master Niv-Mizzet. The Mage Lord discovers dragon eggs in the Utvara Reclamation Zone, but not just any eggs. They're from the race of ancient Ravnican dragons, a race extinct save for Mizzet, and one with godlike power akin to the elder dragons of Dominaria. Decades later, after the decamillennium and dissolution of the Guildpact, caused by machinations between guild leaders, Zomaj acts on his plan. He incubates the eggs for several years, preparing to use control magic to mentally dominate them as they hatch and use them for destructive ends. All the while, the Firemind remains isolated, aloof and unseen, apparently oblivious to the threat on his life. If not for the intervention of Teysa Karlov, Agris Kos, and the Izzet courier Crix, Zomaj might have been successful. The group thwarted the Mage Lord, killing him and the 3 ancient dragon hatchlings in the process. Perhaps, in his omniscience, Niv knew what would befall his maddened pupil and determined his own intervention wasn't necessary. But the destruction of the Guildpact and dissension into chaos brought about something that did require his attention. The violence and magical destabilization of mana ley lines surrounding the events of the Decamillennium caused an ancient and mysterious race to awaken from thousands of years of slumber. The Nephilim of Ravnica are remnants of the plane's primordial past. Seen by some as the old gods, they are monstrous creatures with vast reserves of power. After roughly 10,000 years of imprisonment, these gods broke from their chains and once more made their presence felt. They are raw manifestations of the primeval forces of Ravnica, with the power to unleash wanton destruction on the city and its inhabitants. 5 of them gained even more strength after absorbing the essence of a dragon's corpse. Finally, after 2,500 years of self-imposed exile, Niv-Mizzet swept down from the sky and confronted the dangerous Nephilim. It's a sign of his own significant might that the ancient dragon not only fought the monstrosities singly, but utterly obliterated 2 of the 5. The remaining had enough strength to force the dragon to retreat, although Niv would mention that it was solely because he grew bored with the fight. With ancient forces ravaging the city, with the Guildpact broken, and the plane on the precipice of a return to barbarism, Niv-Mizzet once more assumes a firm control over his broken Izzet League. Niv-Mizzet contemplated the future of Ravnica in the years following the dissolution of the Guildpact, if the great city could survive without the magical binding law, or if chaos would swallow it whole. For over 50 years, the dragon seeks out answers to rebuild the Guildpact and bolster his flagging guild. Perhaps he wishes to rewrite the document to confer more power on himself. His decades of sifting through information, of listening to whispers and tracing dead leads, finally bear fruit in 4558 AR, when Niv-Mizzet uncovers clues and symbols suggesting there is a way for the Guildpact to breathe once more. A failsafe placed by the Planeswalker Azor that, if successfully completed, would allow the guilds to come together once more, amend, and ratify a new document. This failsafe is called the Implicit Maze, and Niv-Mizzet sends Ral Zarek, a young but brilliant Izzet mage and planeswalker, to research the maze. Niv's interest in solving the puzzle turns to obsession, but after a time his and Ral's project loses its momentum. The clues seem beyond comprehension. But then, Jace Beleren, another planeswalker and mind mage, travels to Ravnica and learns of the dragon's intentions. He forms a psychic link with the Firemind to peer into Niv-Mizzet's thoughts, and this, combined with his own extensive research into the Implicit Maze, uncovers the purpose behind the maze and how it can be completed. The maze itself is a path of mana ley lines that pass through all the districts and guild gates of Ravnica, ending in the Forum of Azor, where the power to rewrite the Guildpact lies. Its tortuous path extends in more than 2 dimensions and is not without obstacles, chiefly the primordial elementals that guard the maze, seen in the 5-card cycle. The Implicit Maze was intended to be completed in solidarity by all 10 guilds of Ravnica, to see if a new Guildpact could indeed be written. But if their squabbles separated them, and they couldn't create an air of cooperation and harmony, the magical bailiff waiting at the end of the maze would enact Azor's law and deliver the supreme verdict, utterly destroying the guilds. Of course, most guilds aren't privy to this information, and after millennia of feuds, rivalries, and self-interest, decide to claim glory for themselves. Niv-Mizzet sends Rao to inform the other guilds of the challenge of the implicit maze, that they should send forth their most worthy emissary to run the maze, and that the trail begins in the Trans-Guild Promenade. The dragon, meanwhile, works to create his own guild's maze runner, a weird wizard of ice and lightning stabilized by Mizium and given the name Melek. Rao Zarek was furious that the dragon chose Melek to run the maze over himself. After all, he had spent years on the project, researching and discovering the maze. It was his to run by right, to find glory for the Izzet League, and to impress its parent. In a fit of rage, Zarek destroys the weird and becomes the Izzet League's maze runner. As the runners for each guild begin solving the maze, Niv takes steps to ensure his own victory. This is seen in the art and flavor text of Crackling Perimeter, which reads, "As the path he sought came into focus, Niv-Mizzet took steps to prevent others from approaching it." Here we see an electrolyzed field cutting off the maze's route. Despite the dragon's sabotage and his runner's knowledge of the maze, the Izzet aren't the only guild to arrive at the Forum of Azor. All 10 runners are present, in fact, in addition to Jace Beleren. The chamber devolves into fighting and argument as each guild seeks to have the power of the maze behind them. The flames of violence are further fanned when the bailiff, upon witnessing the failure of the guilds to cooperate, grants each runner the ability to activate the supreme verdict. With time running short and the future of the plane hanging in the balance, Jace uses his mental magic to link the minds of all 10 runners, preventing any one from enacting the verdict. Their minds meld together, their thoughts, fears, and desires open for all to feel. This act of cooperation between guilds, no matter how coerced, is enough to complete the maze. Unfortunately for Niv-Mizzet, who no doubt had plans to gather the power himself, Jace's actions result in the Guildpact being revived once more, the Mind Mage acting as its living vessel. Beleren is now the mediator and supreme law between the guilds and on the plane of Ravnica as a whole. Somewhat thwarted in his plans, but satisfied that the puzzle of the maze was solved, Niv-Mizzet once more retreats to the inner chambers of Nivix to continue experimentation and self-enlightenment. Niv-Mizzet had known about other planes in the vast multiverse, and the planeswalkers that traveled them long before his interactions with Jace Beleren. Over his 17,000 years of existence, he's had several dealings with planeswalkers, no doubt learning of their worlds, their abilities, and most importantly, how to determine when one has planeswalked to Ravnica. Niv takes planeswalkers seriously, seeing them as trespassers on his land and threats to his power. He made it a top priority to know the whereabouts of walkers, when they came, when they went. To this end, the ancient dragon tasks his brilliant maze runner Rao Zarek with creating a device capable of alerting them whenever a planeswalk took place. This device crackles with magical electricity whenever walkers came or left, seen in the card Thousand Year Storm. Rao works on it in secret under the title of Project Lightning Bug. It's at this time that Niv-Mizzet also discovers an extraplanar threat infiltrating the guilds of Ravnica, a planeswalker seeking to weaken the plane before conducting a full-scale invasion. The Elder Dragon and God Pharaoh of Amonkhet, Nicol Bolas. Niv's realization and subsequent suspicion are highlighted in the flavor text of Izzet Guildgate, which reads, "Yesterday, I didn't recognize my own guild. Today, I see why, and for tomorrow, I must be prepared." Mizzet understands the gravity of the situation, the threat that Bolas poses. Despite his own great strength and wisdom, the Parun cannot defeat the Elder Dragon alone, which is why he retreats from society, from much of his guild and duties, to pursue an experiment that, if successful, will confer onto him the power of the living Guildpact, with which he can destroy Bolas. This device is known as the Interlocus, and Niv-Mizzet once more disappears from Ravnican affairs to fully invest himself in his experiments. The burdens of Guildmaster fall onto Zarek, who also realizes the threat of Nicol Bolas, for he has had dealings with the Elder Dragon in the past, and has been indebted to him since. But when Bolas's agent, the Artificer Tezzeret, appears before Zarek to collect on the debt, Rao refuses. He won't betray Ravnica, and the two walkers quickly devolve to fighting. At the same time, high in his personal laboratory within Nivix, Niv-Mizzet falls victim to a Dimir thought spy, an agent hired by Bolas to plant a thought in the mind of the Izzet Parun. The thought of converting Project Lightning Bug into a planar beacon and to attract planeswalkers. Though he catches the spy, the Firemind is unable to determine which thoughts are his own, and can't risk delaying. Despite leaving the Interlocus unfinished, he sends for Rao to summon the guild leaders. Perhaps Niv-Mizzet can convince them to willingly transfer the power of the Guildpact to him. The Izzet Parun states the facts and makes his plea to those gathered at the guild summit. A threat of catastrophic proportions is poised to attack Ravnica. Nicol Bolas has infiltrated and manipulated the guilds, tearing them apart and dissolving what resistance they could deploy before he invades with a grand army. The only chance Ravnica has is to come together, to agree to alter the Guildpact and transfer its power to Niv-Mizzet so that he may face Bolas with the full might of Ravnica coursing through him, and defeat the Elder Dragon before millions perish. It's a compelling argument, but not so compelling when it's spoken by a dragon who's known only for his conceit and selfish pursuit of influence. Many of the guild leaders believe his plea is nonsense, that his motives are self-serving and dubious. The group can't come to a decision, so they recess for the evening. This is exactly when Nicol Bolas strikes. His agent Vraska, the Golgari Gorgon, petrifies the Sphinx Isperia, the guild leader of the Azoria Senate, who had been paramount in the day's discussions. Highlighted in the card, Assassin's Trophy. This kills not only a guild leader, but also Niv's plan for power, as the entire summit dissolves. But a dragon that survived millennia is never without a backup plan, and Niv-Mizzet once more turns to his experienced and dependable pupil. Rao Zarek finishes the schematics for the Interlocus and is very near powering the device, capable of granting Mizzet the strength he needs to overpower Bolas. But the Izzet Parun has never before dealt with a threat as cunning and ruthless as the Elder Dragon. A power vacuum in the Azoria Senate is filled by Dovin Baan, a planeswalker from Kaladesh who is currently an agent operating under Bolas's employ. In the final days and hours leading up to the Elder Dragon's arrival on Ravnica, Baan infiltrates the Izzet laboratories and sabotages the Interlocus, preventing Niv-Mizzet from harnessing the power of the Guildpact and neutralizing the greatest threat to Bolas's invasion. The time has come. With the activation of the planar bridge technology housed within Tezzeret's artificial body, a planar portal twists reality and bends mana ley lines. In a flash, a large opening between planes erupts and connects Ravnica to the desert plain of Amonkhet, from which the dread horde army of Eternals pours forth. At the fore is none other than the God Pharaoh himself. Nicol Bolas knew the threat the Guildpact posed, which is why he opened his planar portal at the chamber of the Guildpact, the heart of Ravnica and seat of its magical power. The destruction of the chamber is a crushing symbolic defeat for Ravnica, and the portal disrupts the ley lines of the plane that charge the magic of the Guildpact, rendering it useless. Niv-Mizzet has been denied his power twice over. With violence erupting all across the city, and legions of undead marching relentlessly, Mizzet realizes that victory will be slim. In his vanity, he underestimated Bolas's schemes and refused to take the interplanar threat seriously. But he sees an opening, an opportunity to end the bloodshed before it gains too much momentum, killing the snake by going directly for the head. With this in thought, the Firemind rushes headlong into Nicol Bolas as one ancient, omniscient, and powerful dragon engages another. The fight between Niv-Mizzet and Bolas is spectacular. The two hurl arcane spells, mental assaults, fire and claw at another, and blood is spilled by each party. Their duel levels entire blocks of Ravnica, and Niv-Mizzet proves to be a match for Bolas, and even surprises the Elder Dragon when Nicol's mind-shattering touch is unable to break through the psychic barriers erected by the Firemind. But Niv is a plane-bound being, and as the fight runs its course, he realizes that he can't defeat a planeswalker that has the power of Alara's maelstrom flowing through him, one that has known the strength of a pre-mending god. Mizzet tries to crush Nicol under the weight of a leveled Ravnican superstructure, but Bolas emerges from it in a dark cloud of hatred and chilling death. This sight strikes fear into Niv-Mizzet's heart, an emotion he's not felt in his entire existence. He stifles his emotions and charges Bolas in reckless rage. Despite his heroism, Niv's efforts aren't enough. Bolas slays the Izzet dragon, dissolving his essence until all that remain are Niv-Mizzet's charred bones. But the Izzet Parun learned from the machinations of Bolas, and he too has contingency plans layers deep on how his foreseen death might fuel his growth. Niv-Mizzet had long since known of the imminent threat to Ravnica posed by Nicol Bolas, and analyzed his own impending defeat. And so, the Firemind enacted a delicate plan that would preserve his essence should his body be destroyed. In his days spent secluded in the laboratories of Nivix, the Izzet Parun worked on projects other than the Interlocus. With the assistance of Ugin, Nicol Bolas's twin and spirit dragon, Niv learned the art of preserving his essence and created a device capable of storing his own spirit. We can see his experiment unfold in the art of the card Firemind's research, where a projection of the dragon's spirit manifests before him. The device itself is a filigree structure made of silver and other precious metals in the shape of Niv-Mizzet's likeness, and magically charged to house his essence. This is shown to us in the art of the card Firemind Vessel, whose flavor text states, "The city mourned Niv-Mizzet's death, but he left behind the components for his rebirth." Although the vessel was transported to the meditation realm for Ugin to protect, the other components and plan the Izzet Parun manufactured are entrusted to the planeswalkers Jace, Vraska, and Ral Zarek. The three pore over the clues of Operation Desperation and deliberate on how best to execute it, showcased in the art and flavor text of Contentious Plan, which reads, "Niv-Mizzet had perfected a plan, but he had no control over the mortal minds who had to agree to implement it." Within these documents lie the keys to resurrecting Niv-Mizzet and granting him the strength to defeat Bolas. As the War of the Spark ravages Ravnica, the Planeswalker trio are charged with fulfilling Operation Desperation, a task that requires the presence and cooperation of guild representatives from all 10 guilds, the smoldering remains of the Firemind, the mana ley lines of the plane, and the Firemind Vessel. And it's quite unfeasible. It's as though Nicol Bolas knew what was required to resurrect his greatest adversary, and methodically struck at the components. He sparked discord and suspicion between the guilds. He set his Dread Horde and God Eternals to prevent any form of organized resistance, and he disrupted Ravnica's ley lines with his planar portal. Against all odds, and with hope for victory slipping through their fingers, the guilds put their differences aside and sent representatives to gather at the chamber of the Guildpact to alter the living law and confer onto Niv-Mizzet its power. The planeswalker Nissa Ravane joins the ritual, and with her deep connection to mana, realigns the plane's ley lines and directs surges of mana to fuel the spell. As power pour forth around the representatives, the Firemind vessel sparks with electrical charge, and a large portal opens around it. Wispy tendrils of red and blue twist out from the portal, summoning Niv-Mizzet's spiritual essence. Primal energy swells as the ritual continues, and the dragon's bones begin glowing, absorbing the energy of both the ley lines and the living Guildpact. The spell reaches a fever pitch, but this much mana attracts the attention of the God Pharaoh's Dread Horde. God Eternal Kefnet strikes at the gathering, but is repelled by Teo Verada, and he erects shields to protect the ritual. The portal widens, the bones turn white hot, and the energy grows uncontrollable. From the beyond, a figure takes shape. A frilled mane with golden eyes, a body no longer scaled of red and blue, but brilliant gold, with a decagon of energy seared into its chest, representing the 10 guilds of Ravnica. Niv-Mizzet bursts forth from the portal, reborn and remade as the living Guildpact, a dragon avatar and paragon for all that the plane stands for. No longer the parent of a single guild, Mizzet is the guardian of all Ravnica, and with the power of the Guildpact flowing through him, he now has the means to defend it. This glorious reincarnation is seen in the art of the card Niv-Mizzet Reborn, who is now aligned with all 5 colors of mana. Niv-Mizzet finally has the power he's desired for so long. He consumes Kefnet in a white-hot blast of pure energy, utterly obliterating the god. The sudden need of energy leaves the dragon avatar weakened, however, and he immediately falls unconscious. Niv-Mizzet regains his composure during the climax of the War of the Spark, after Nicol Bolas casts the Elder Spell and is primed to assume the mantle of pre-mending godhood. Mizzet surveys a scene of absolute wreckage, but if he hurries, he may be able to stop Bolas from finishing his plan. The Firemind rushes to Bolas' citadel to find that the Elder Dragon's Dread Horde and God Eternals have turned on him, due to Liliana Vess's necromantic control. She commands Oketra and Bantu to kill the God Pharaoh, and although he destroys Oketra, the betrayal distracts him long enough for Niv-Mizzet to ram Bolas through with Hazaret's spear. Mizzet is pushed back, but his strike weakens Bolas enough for Bantu to bite the Elder Dragon, consuming his spark and all that he gathered, leaving him defeated and at the whims of Ugin. Niv-Mizzet, the last of the ancient Ravnican dragons, Firemind and Paragon of Ravnica, can add to his noble deeds the defeat of an Elder Dragon and perhaps the most dangerous being in the multiverse. In the aftermath of War of the Spark, the reborn Mizzet officially relinquishes his title of Parun and Guildmaster of the Izzet League, conferring it onto his loyal subordinate Ral Zarek, and assumes the mantle of living Guildpact in earnest. Although he spent much of his existence accruing knowledge, personal clout, and power, it seems as though Niv-Mizzet has foregone the life of vanity and self-interest for one of impartial leadership. He arbitrates the discussions and arguments in the aftermath of the War of the Spark, and tasks the planeswalkers Ral, Vraska, and Kaya who worked for Bolas but defected early into the war, with tracking down the 3 planeswalkers that remained on the Elder Dragon's side far too long. They are Liliana Vess, Dovin Baan, and Tezzeret the Seeker. Although all 3 rogue walkers escape with their lives, Kaya returns with Liliana's Chain Veil, which Niv-Mizzet seizes and stores for safekeeping. Perhaps he'll try to harness its power in the future to become even greater, or to ensure that none desecrate Ravnica on the scale just witnessed. Mizzet gloats to Jace Beleren about his plan and the conferral of the living Guildpact, to which Jace replies that despite his immense power, Mizzet will ever remain a plane-bound being. But perhaps the dragon's intent on peace and cooperation is nothing more than a facade, an elaborate ruse to bide time while his plans and experiments unfold. Perhaps the Firemind has already determined a way to either ignite a latent spark within him, or fabricate the powers of a planeswalker. This may be the motivation behind his pursuit of the Guildpact's power. With the defeat of one ancient draconic planeswalker in Nicol Bolas, will we see the rise of another in the avatar of Ravnica? Will Niv-Mizzet finally overcome the greatest obstacle presented to him, and seek further glory, deeper secrets in the vast expanse of the multiverse? Only time will tell. Thanks for watching this video on Niv-Mizzet, ancient Parun of the Izzet League, last of the old dragons, living Guildpact, and guardian of Ravnica. Leave a thumbs up if you like the video, and be sure to subscribe for more content. And now I want to hear from you. What does the future hold for Niv-Mizzet? Is he destined to travel the blind eternities? Will he ever be granted the title of Elder Dragon? Let me know your thoughts, as well as suggestions for future videos in the comments below. Shout out to Alex Joaquim for the intro and outro music. References used can be found in the description. Until next time, go forth and explore the lore.